Oh.
13 years of age is when I first met my crowd, okay? And I started having sex too, you know?
You were living in New York City?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's when I'm sticking to New York.
Yeah.
And the crowd was a mixed bag of girls and boys, straight and gay, you know, Latins, Irish, Dutch, German, Anglos, you know. It was a totally mixed bag, you know. Wonderful kids, everybody, you know, put up with everything.
Nice.
We were really very open about everything, you know what I mean? And some of the boys ended up marrying some of the girls and stuff like that. And I almost got married myself at 21, you know? And I finally backed out and realized this is not for me. You know, so at that time, Harlem was jumping with parties. They were giving parties every evening at night, you know, in
Wow.
basements and stuff. And but we used to go to the Harlem parties, you know, and they were great fun. And that's where I first met gay crowds, you know. And from then on, you know, we started meeting the parties and going to the gay clubs in Harlem, you know. So you know, we were such a mixed bag. We did everything.
Wow.
We were really, New York was a wild place then. And so then everything broke up at 18 because that's when my whole family moved to Miami. So they started tearing down the buildings on 125th Street and putting up those horrible projects. And most of the kids lived up around that way. So, you know, the whole crowd dispersed. Everything ended in 1948. And I didn't come back to New York to live till 1954. So I have to really start from 54. You know, forget the Florida experience, which is another story in itself, you know. But when I came back, there was no crowd left, but my straight friends were still around, you know. But then I met Vito, okay, and that was a real introduction to the gay scene, because Vito was an artist. He introduced me to art, you know, which I'd already been. I used to do comic books as a kid, you know.
Yeah.
My first actual sex experience with a man was just about when I was 17. I met him in the park, because we lived in this neighborhood on 111. So I met him down by Grant's Tomb, I remember, you know, and we had sex there one evening, you know. I wasn't nervous. I was really
You're
nervy.
ready. You're ready to.
I was more than ready. And I was, what was I?
17-ish.
No, not even that. I was a little younger, maybe 15, 16, you know. And, but as I said, I'd already had sex with our own peers group.
Oh,
Not the
okay.
group I was going out with, but the group that from when I was a kid from 10, you know. We used to play spin the bottle and kiss each other and play with each other's...
Boys and girls?
No, just boys.
Oh.
And then we used to jerk each other off, you know.
Oh, nice.
That's from 10 years old on.
Wow.
But anyway, you know, then going to 13 when I moved around here, then I met that crowd that I told you about. And my first experience with a man was at Grant's Tomb. This guy was about 23. I was, what, 16? He was a man, you know. And we had a good time, and I liked it, you know. But I was still going out with girls. I thought nothing of it, you know. So this continued. And I really didn't know the gay scene until Rudy took us to the Harlem scene, okay? At least I got to know the Harlem scene. That was pretty wild, I mean, when you think about it, you know?
Yeah.
Going to all these Harlem parties and drug scenes and suicides and what have you, you know what I mean? And we did crazy things. We danced on the bars in Harlem, you know, and sang, and the black people loved it, you know. And my friend did a strip on the bar.
Yeah?
You know? Yeah. It was a lot of fun. And Vito was very much into house parties, not bars, you know. So we started the house party scene, and there I met a lot of queens and gay people who took me to the gay bars, which I didn't know where they were at the time. There were tons of them all over the city, you know?
Wow.
And they were constantly being raided by the police. We were harassed like crazy by the police. I remember Main Street was the main bar on 8th Street where I used to go. That's the one I remember the most. And I used to go there, and what happened was they would have a red light and a buzzer, you know, so in the back room. So when the police raided, they rang the buzzer and the red light, and everybody dispersed, you know. But they invariably, at least one time I was there, the police would pick on the maddest painted queen and arrest them, you know? Because you know those queens, they're like, they couldn't keep their mouth shut. And so they got arrested, you know? So when I was there, they arrested this one queen who was the loudmouth, you know? But that's the only time I ever had that experience. But all the other bars, we were always worried because the police would harass the gay people like crazy. This was way before, remember, what's the big thing?
Oh, Stonewall.
Before Stonewall, right, you know? And in the 50s, and now the first thing about the 50s, everybody was dressed to the nines. You went to a bar with a shirt and tie and a suit.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, there was no such thing as casual dressing, you know? And there was a class system. There were the really raunchy bars, which I loved.
Yeah.
There were the middle class bars, and then there were the elite bars where the wealthy boys went. That was the Oak Room at the Plaza and the Bird Circuit. One which I went to was called the Blue Parrot, you know. And the Bird Circuit is where they wore silk suits and nobody talked to you. You know? They were too good for you, you know what I mean? Everybody was so snooty, it was unbelievable. I said, well, up yours, you know, that's not for me. So I never went again to the Bird Circuit. And, you know, that was it.
And they didn't know you were Puerto Rican either.
No, they didn't know that, no. Yeah. At that time...
A little Jewish boy.
Yeah, right. They thought I was Jewish. I looked more Jewish than anything at that time.
Yeah.
And I had Jewish friends, of course, at the time, too, and was straight and some gay, you know. It was such a mixed bag of people. You know, New York. It was never any different. It was always a mix. But one thing I must say was a homogeneous, however you pronounce it, population. There were not foreigners. There wasn't hardly any travel, except among the rich, and it was mostly by ship. So consequently, you had very little danger of getting disease. I have to make that point because it's important. You could do everything in the book and catch nothing. The biggest thing you could get was gonorrhea, which I had twice. We got rid of in a week, you know.
No, twice.
Yeah. And then syphilis, which my roommate got. Took 6 months to get rid of that because he had it up the ass. Therefore, he didn't know he had it. So he didn't know till he had the secondary stages, which was a rash all over his body, you know. Oh, he must have, of course, you know. So consequently, that was the only bad thing I ever experienced was his syphilis, which poor thing cried and he was miserable, you know. Couldn't have sex with anybody for 6 months, you know. And so I thought, got to be careful about that. But you can't see it as the canker sore comes up first. But in the ass, you can't see it or feel it, you know? Yeah. So it's better to do a little sucking if you're going to do that, so you get a canker sore up here where you can see it, you know? You know? So anyway, he did that. But anyway, the bar scene was very lively, and there were tons of bars in the city to go to, you know? Unlike what people think, it was jammed with gay bars all over the place. On Broadway and 8th Street and, you know, the Village, all over the place, and uptown also, you know. And on the east side, the 50s were wild, you know. And the Latin boys, they were around. You know what they used to do? They used to wait outside the bars. They were not allowed in.
They weren't allowed in?
No, because they were too scummy looking, you know. They were scuzzy looking. So they weren't allowed in, so they waited outside for the queens to come out, and then they would get picked up, you know. So that's the way it used to work, because the queens were too elegant to pick anybody up in the bars. They didn't want to be seen, you know, going with some scuzzy number. But the minute they left the bar, of course, you know, they would pick up these boys, and they tell them, follow me, you know. That's the way it was, you know. It was very secretive, you know, very uptight, very, you know, and that's the way it used to be. So that was the bar scene. But the bars were fun. There were always some wild old queens with jokes who were loud and screaming, who made fun of everybody and, you know, made you laugh like crazy. So there was lots of fun in the dancing. And the danger of the police was kind of a thrill that added to
In a
it,
way,
you know,
yeah,
in a
'cause
way.
you never knew.
You never knew, so in a way it was kind of a thrill, you know.
Let's go. Let's
The later it got at night, the lower your standards. And that's the way it was, you know. And but you know, at the time, one big thing I want to mention: men were more sure of their manhood than they are today. In other words, a man wouldn't mind going with a gay guy because he was so sure of his manhood, he didn't feel that he was being gay. You know what I mean? Whereas today, they're so uptight, you know? There's a big difference in today and in those days. In those days, men knew who they were. You know what I mean? Married or not, a lot of them were married, they would still go with you. And they didn't think anything of it, you know?
Wow.
It didn't make any difference. They didn't diminish their manhood anyway at all, you know? There's a big difference between today and those days. And that was one of the biggest. And of course, I used to frequent, along with some other queens I knew, we used to go to the docks where the this was the raunchy bars, were down by the docks in the 50s.
Yeah.
And we waited for the ships to come in, you know, the merchant ships. And boy, did we had fun there. We met lots of sailors there, you know, raunchy, dirty sailors. And we had sex with them around the corner behind the bar because there weren't many lights. The city was darker then, you know, at night. And there were these parking lots. It was around the bars. And we used to go there and have sex, you know, like mad. So it was a whole big different scene, you know. It was much more open, and the sex was plentiful. Whatever you wanted, boy, you could have it, you know. And the movie theaters, forget it. The balconies were sex galore, you know. That's where you went. At the opera, it was wild. Okay, to mention that. In the standing room only downstairs, the boys used to wear pants with zippers in the back. So they would open their zippers, expose their ass, and someone would come up and fuck them. And this is while they're watching the opera. That's the way it used to be. And half the ushers were gay anyway, so they used to warn people, you know, the intermission, you couldn't do anything because the whole audience was coming out, you know. And I went with a friend once, and we were sitting up in the the cheap seat, standing room only, actually, you know, which was 50 cents at the time. And I saw so many operas that way. But I went with this friend once, and the moment the overture started, he disappeared, you know. Well, guess where he was? In the bathroom, you know, sucking dick. He never showed up except during intermissions.
No wonder they love opera so much.
Yeah, right. Well, in those days, it was kind of wild, you know. I mean, you don't see that today. You can't do that today, you know.
Big Brother's watching.
Yeah, Big Brother's watching. But in those days, damn, the opera was a great place to fuck, you know, and to suck dick and do everything. And upstairs, there was no usher or anything, you know, so that you know, go in the bathroom, wait for anybody to come in. And
Did you ever go to the movies on 42nd Street?
oh God, yeah, it's another story. The movies on 42nd were wild, wild. But after a while, toward the late 50s, they were keeping the lights on, and police were standing behind and all that. Still didn't mean shit. I sucked off a policeman who was supposed to be watching us.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I mean, so much for the police protection. And, you know, so I mean, it was a laughable matter because people were, lights on or not, they were having sex like crazy, you know what I mean? So it didn't matter. But those raunchy movie theaters on 42nd were so much fun. And they had a flea circus, which was downstairs toward 8th Avenue.
The Hubert's Museum?
Yeah, something like that
Yeah.
it was. I don't know if it's still there.
It was there when I came in 70.
Yeah, it was still
1970.
there.
For a year.
But down there, you could have sex like mad, you know? You met guys, and there were all these cages and things, you know,
Flea circus.
with fleas, you know, little bugs and this shit. It was a piece of shit circus, you know. You went in, I think, for 5 cents, you know. But you could go down there and meet guys and have sex right there, you know. So there was plenty going on, is what I'm saying, you know.
All the Subway Johns.
Oh, that's another story. They used to be called the tea rooms.
Tea rooms.
And we always asked to see somebody's knees, to see the tile pattern on their knees. Then we knew they were tea room queens. Because they used to hang out there all the time, you know, sucking people off, you know. I went a few times and did my scene also. So, uh, but it was pretty wild. A cop came in and tried to arrest my friend, one of my friends, for doing that. My friend ended up sucking him off. he was wild. He told the cop off, and he went down on him, grabbed his dick and everything, and that was the end of that. He never got arrested. So
Wow.
and I sucked somebody off in the subway at the end of the station.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was wild because the train was
It
coming.
goes into the tunnel.
Yeah, and the train was coming, and I'm trying to get him off as fast as possible before the train reached the station. So crazy things like that used to happen.
Be exciting.
Yeah, it was very exciting. It was a lot of fun. And the orgies that went on in them. They used to have house parties because apartments were cheap in those days.
Mm.
They hadn't assessed them at market value as they did in 1983. That's when everything changed.
Mm.
But before that, apartments, you could get a 7 or 8 room apartment for $80 a month. And lots of queens had these big apartments. So they used to give these orgies, had mattresses all over the floor, and the back room, the one I went to a lot, it was made into a bar. So we get tired of sex, you went to the bar and talked to the queens and laughed and joked, heard stories. And then there was Fire Island, which at that time was very small. Cherry Grove was it. It was a small colony with a few houses, and it was nothing else but sand. So there was plenty of sex on the boardwalk, in the bushes, and house party, orgies, things that went on all the time, 24 hours a day, So it was a wild time. It really was. Very different from today.
Wow.
And all that ended. In the 60s, things started falling apart. But the 50s was a great time. And Tony and I talked about it, and we both agreed that you had more sex in the 50s than you did later on. There was more hypocrisy, and you didn't talk about it.
Yeah.
That was the big deal,
That was the difference, yeah.
because straight people knew I had a lot of gay friends even then. And they used to come to dinner and play with the kids
But
and all
people
that.
just didn't talk about it.
But you just didn't talk about
Yeah.
it, you know what I mean? That was the big difference. And then it was okay, as long as you didn't talk about it, what you did, it didn't matter. So, I mean, there was still a big mixture of straight and gay going on, just like today. Everybody had gay friends, straight people, who played with their children, who even took care of their children, as I did, took care of my friends' children several times. I mean, so there was a whole thing going on that was much wilder than people imagine. And it was much more fun, because the challenge was there, and the fact having to be secretive and all that, it made it very different. The village was always more open than anywhere else.
Yeah.
Let's
It always
face
had it was the avant-garde, the artists.
Exactly, the
gays.
artists, the gays, everybody was down there. So the village obviously was much more open. But even then, the village was still fairly straight, you know what I mean? And the gay bars still had to watch out and all that.
Peep
Techniques,
pose.
yeah, it was usually eye-to-eye contact, and you look down and, and they had a heart, I would play with it, Then you
When
got,
they see that you're looking at their dick.
yeah, they knew.
get the message.
They got the message. And they used to go in the vestibule, because the vestibule cars had vestibules then, the subway cars. So that used to go, and
Between the cars?
no, the car itself. Each car itself had a vestibule. That's where you enter the subway. Had a vestibule that was
The
separate.
stations.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And the car itself had a separation, a door in which you entered the actual car, but there was a little vestibule at the end of each car, which was very private. And so you could have sex there, and I did several times in the vestibule, because the cars. One thing I have to say, in those days, between the rush hours, the subways were almost empty.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
There was hardly anybody in there. So you could have sex in the vestibule and nobody would know. There was hardly anybody in the car to look. So there was a huge difference. If you went at 2 o'clock in the afternoon or 1 o'clock and took the subway, they were empty. And they only lasted about a half hour, and then it was empty again for about an hour until
then
the rush
around
hour
5.
started. Around 5,
Yeah.
5:30, the rush hour started.
Yeah.
And
Now-
at night, late at night, forget it. They were really empty. And they ran all night, so you could have sex like mad. So, at 9 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night, fabulous. Because you got the workmen, you know, who used to come off their shifts. The feeling of the period, in other words, was more quiet, more discreet.
Yeah.
There weren't so many
You know.
cars on the street, you know what I mean? And kids used to play stickball because they hadn't moved out of the city yet, you know. I met a Marine in full dress uniform. He was in the parade. You know, I spotted him, I gave him a smile, he smiled back, and I followed the parade to the end, you know. And sure enough, when they released them all, you know, he came right over and right home with me.
Oh, nice.
Then we'd have a good time.
Oh.
And he was beautiful in that uniform, the dress uniform. He got navy blue with the red stripes and all the white hat cap. And, oh, it was fabulous. That was great.
Yummy. Delicious.
But yeah, it was only one time because, of course, he was going back with his unit, you know. But that was really a delicious, special occasion.